got a bit out of line.
Let's crush.
Today, the 3K freeze out as well as the deuce to 7 single draw $1,500 in case I bust the 3K freeze out. Also, let me know in the comments, what is it that you would like to see more in these kind of vlogs in the future? What is it that you've enjoyed so far? What is it that you're missing? We try to improve from vlog to vlog, and I also try to get some deep runs, which I was not fortunate enough to happen yet, but I keep fighting. So without further ado, let's jump right into the action. 3K freeze out. Food prep is done.
Locked and loaded.
Hamburger with scrambled eggs, a pickle, some fruits. What do you got? Same, right? Yeah. The plan for today, 3-bet, 3-bet, 3-bet.
All day long.
Because in these multi-way pots, you just have so little equity. Even if you have natural flat calls, you need to punish those wide opens with more 3-betting. So even if it's like a natural flat like ace-jack or ace-10 suited, it just kills your equity if someone overcalls like 5-3 suited, 8-6 off, and all these kind of shit ends up being played. Also going to start reshoving more with 30, 40. It just, when ranges are so wide, it just becomes so much more profitable. And also 4-handed, 5-handed, you're just so much more handicapped and you rely so much more on just really hitting big hands that I think you want to just play up the aggression a little bit more, which I think is also the more profitable play. So we're gonna head now to the casino. 3K freeze out, only one bullet, so let's make it count. Yeah, pocket sixes from under the gun, not so much to say. I open raise, button calls. The button was short, like I think around 25 big blinds, 30 big blinds, and big blind calls. Flop comes 10-9-6. I think it's a board where we want to be checking a lot with our sets. My opponent seems solid. If I play against the really weak opponent, a recreational calling station, I don't care. I just go bet, bet, bet. But we're gonna have lots of ace kings, ace queens, and I think this board is also gonna be stepped quite often from the button. So I check, he bets, I call. Turn is a low card. He bets pretty much like half pot or something, and then he just has very little left. So I just put the rest all in, because now if he has ace-10, if he has a slow play, even if he bet folds queen jack, maybe he puts in the rest, who knows. Yeah, and just rip in the rest. He calls, he actually had aces for slow play, which, yeah, not too bad. I would prefer flatting aces against cutoff or hijack, just because ranges are wider, the blinds are going to be playing more aggressive. I raise from under the gun, so the blinds don't really have an incentive to be that aggressive. Even if they have 7s or 9s, they're not very often just calling as well. But if you're raising from the cutoff and button, then all these lower pairs become a lot more valuable. People start shoving them or squeezing them. So, or in general, more bluffs and squeezes from the blinds. So I would always 3-bet aces there. But anyway, worked out, and was pretty much the first hand we played, and we went from 40K directly up to 55K. Very interesting hand against Maria Konnikova, who I also did a podcast with. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So I open raise the button, she calls from the big blind, flop comes 8-7 deuce. We have king 8 suited with a backdoor flush draw, king 8 in diamonds. I bet a bit bigger. It's a board where we have a lot of big bets, pocket cards, ace 8, king 8. The board is very dynamic, can run out very dynamic, so lots of backdoor draws possible. So we want to now get in a lot of money, so I bet pretty big, so around 2/3 pot. She check raises, so I bet around 3.5K to 5K. She check raises to 10K. I don't hate clicking it back with this hand. Can just get very, very nasty when the money goes in. So yeah, I'm not really sure what she's check raising here, especially since we block all the 2 pairs and sets, maybe 7s, maybe deuces, right? So definitely possible. So we just call it. The turn is the, no, it was 8-7-3, not 8-7 deuce. Turn is the 4 in diamonds. Now she bets 7K, and the pot was around 20K. So that was a bit weird. So now I felt very comfortable that I have the best hand. Unless she's on a mega slow play with like 6-5 in diamonds, which would be also the backdoor flush. We have king 8 in diamonds now. I think it's a draw, 10-9. If I don't have the diamonds, I would raise, because I don't want to give her a river card for such a cheap price. And this is important, where don't think on that, or don't focus on that 3% likelihood of her being on this massive slow play, right? But since we have the diamond, so in case she is on 10-9, she has fewer outs, which helps me. So I just call. So now we have like 34k on the river, and the river is a brick. Like I think a 3. So the bottom card pairs. So something like 8-7-4 or 8-7-3-4-3. She bets 15k. I was like, I don't really beat anything. I don't see people raising Queen 8. I don't see people raising Jack 8. But then there's so many draws like 10-9, Jack 9, 6-5 got there. But I also think I would bet bigger. So I ended up calling. Of course, I was just thinking through for 7 seconds. And she showed 8-2 suited, which I kind of like the flop raise because we're gonna have lots of like Queen Jacks and maybe Jack 9s in our raising range. I think turn is also fine with a small. I think turn is good with this particular hand, small or check. But I think river is just a nice check call. River is a bit of an overplay in my opinion. I like it though that she's not afraid to raise those hands up. I mean, jamming would be sick as well, right? She blocks pocket 8s. I think if she just rips it in, I would fold my king 8. I mean, do I want to? I just chipped up from 40k to 55k. I had a pretty healthy stack. If I lose this pot, I'm down to 40k. I'm playing like what, 45, 50 big blinds. I think that line would be sick because, yeah, I don't think I would end up calling a weak 8 or just an overpair on this board where she can have straights, boats. Especially very often I'm gonna have 10-8, I'm gonna have pocket 10s, I'm gonna have pocket 9s, pocket jacks, gonna be blocking a lot of bluffs. So yeah, against this sizing we have an easy call. I was thinking value raising for a second. I think would have been a bit too thin. I don't think she would have called it off. Yeah, definitely very interesting line. I like the fact that she goes pretty thin for value. I think that's not too bad against live players who are also not 3-betting and then raising enough or re-raising thin enough for value, so it freezes also the action. So yeah, I would have just played it a bit differently, but I think the river is a nice check call hand because we're gonna have 10-9s, we're gonna have Jack 9s, we're gonna have like perhaps some Queen 10s, like especially when we have clean overcards with the backdoor flush, I might float these against the raise and then end up bluffing. But especially all the 10-9 combos, offsuited combos are a lot of combos. Jack 10 as well, so especially with the backdoor flush draw, if I'm on Jack 9, Jack 10 diamonds, maybe Queen Jack diamonds, I think I would definitely bluff the river. The 10-9 combos, right? 9-6 suited is also possible. Yeah, it was not a 5, it was a 4. 9-6 suited, so there are definitely a lot of draws, and I think 8-2 suited here, 8-2s in space she had. It's a nice check calling hand. But we went pretty quickly within the first level that we sat down on that day, went up from like 40k to 55k and then to 90k.
So let's see, Jet chipped up. How much you got now? 75?
Like 80k.
Nice. Keep going.
So this hand was really interesting. Just a pre-flop decision where I got a bit out of line. So hijack, open raises or middle position, one of these two. Definitely a very loose play from my end, but I haven't been playing. I chipped up really nicely after I won the hand against Mariah and I won the hand with pocket 6s, and then I haven't been playing a hand in a long time. The small blind called, which I think against the stack size from this player is not necessarily strong because he only had like 40 to 50 big blinds. So I decided just to squeeze king 6 off. I think these squeezes can work really well. You have to be very careful against who. I would never do it if I think someone just calling too much. But I feel like the guy that open raised, I don't know, he made the impression he's really smart. And that he's very mindful about his tournament life. So I just went a little bit out of line here. Think if he's on king jack suited or like in positioning against a squeeze, you have to defend really wide actually. So I just think it's a spot where most players just like, if they're on pocket 8s, right, it's like it's a pretty big squeeze, you know, 10k or 10.5k. He raised blinds were 601.2k. I think he had 40, 50k behind. that's already a significant part of his stack, right? And usually I squeeze from the big blind, it's a sign of strength. So yeah, definitely not GTO approved, but you know, we don't care. Worked out, and sometimes it's worth to pay attention to some of these squeezing spots and to pick your opponents wisely. The good thing is my opponents never know what I think of them, right? Like if I think they look rather smart and clever and are mindful about their tournament lives, the way they speak about poker, the way they talk about sports, and that's why yeah, it's just sometimes also small things, small details that I make my decisions based on. So worked out this time. Some, you know, can also lead to a massive punt, but luckily it didn't. Played a pretty interesting hand here with Queen Jack suited. I ended up 3-betting against the stack, especially against the stack. I think it's pretty nice for 30 bigs, 30 to 40 bigs effectively. Puts already a lot of pressure on the stacks, also freeze out, so people tend to play a bit more careful. He also played very solid in my opinion. I think this opponent that you can also see on the footage left to the dealer that we played the pot against didn't see a single mistake. I think he was also really card dead, very often bottom of his range. I think he just had a very unfortunate day. It is what it is sometimes. So I ended up 3-betting this hand, which I think is pretty good. The big blind didn't really play a lot of hands against each other. He also, but from what I've seen, haven't seen a lot of showdowns though, played pretty solid. So I have a bit more incentive to 3-bet this hand. If I have a recreational, I would flat more often. Easy decision. It's a nice hand to 3-bet. We make him forward King Jack off. Even hands like Ace Jack off probably end up folding. I think that's what I would expect from him. The thing is with Queen Jack suited, even if there's an opponent that calls Ace Jack off, it's really not that bad, because if he calls Ace Jack off, he's very likely also calling hands like Queen 9 suited, Jack 9 suited, etc. So then the 3-bet, it kind of equalizes each other, right? So anyway, I ended up 3-betting, and I made my decision more based on the players, who's behind. That drives your win rate a lot more than all these nuances with the blockers, etc. It helps a little bit, but more important is, hey, who's in the big blind? And then I will flat a lot more versus having a better opponent in the big blind where I will end up 3-betting more. So he calls, and I took a very interesting line based on the way I perceive in general the poker population playing in these kind of tournaments, whether it's 1Ks, 2Ks, online or 3K live tournaments. Let's say more like mid-stakes, the mid-stakes population. Because also a lot of players that play $100, $200 online, $500 online will also play these 2K, 3K live tournaments, often staked. I mean, I didn't know what his average buy-in was, but yeah, again, very often we make our decision based on how we perceive certain players or a certain population to play. And that is very important for this hand. So we 3-bet, he calls, the flop comes deuce 3-3. Maybe here and there I will confuse some cards, but the kind of board texture will represent pretty much what is going on. So I think it was 3-3 deuce, no flush draw present. I ended up checking. Why? Because people understep in 3-bet pots. So I am out of position, but I will very often play the turn with one additional piece of information, which is he checks it back. I think if he's on a slow play, if he's on jacks or tens, they end up betting more often. Again, poker is a game of statistical likelihoods. And if I bluff, flop, turn or river, I want to make sure it's more likely that my opponent has a folding hand. Now, on the flop, you're actually supposed to stab a lot, because we 3-bet, we would be flatting forced to 9s or 10s very often. He's going to be calling on them, plus he has a few slow plays. Plus also we have more offsuited combos, plus we have ace king, which he doesn't. So typically on board that is not good for our bluffs, like a king high or queen high board or queen jack, where because we're going to be 3-betting a lot of broadways. We're not going to be 3-betting 6, 5, 7, 6 suited, etc. And we're also not going to be 3-betting 5s or 7s or 8s, which are still decently strong on this board for that kind of stack to pot ratio, because we end up having a lot of ace king, ace queen, and they're worth betting. And he still have jacks, he can still have 10s, he can still have 9s that are good enough to get the money in. And a few occasional slow plays. But again, he's not having those completely, I don't want to say dead hands, but really bad hands like king queen off, some king jack off, some jack 9 suited that we might end up 3-betting, right? not the highest frequency, but if someone is going to have these hands, it's us from the small blind. And on this board, it's pretty bad. So I check with knowing that my opponents are typically checking back very often here. And he checks back, and the turn is a 4. Now, I also think this is an interesting card. So now it's deuce 3, 3, 4. So all the ace highs have a real draw. Is that he will very likely check again with like ace 10 suited, ace jack suited, which I have some nice hands now to start bluffing to get me off my ace king, ace queen. I imagine, without looking into a solver, that a lot of these weaker ace highs, you want to start betting and jam the river. Most players don't do that live. So they want to take the free card and then play a river. So if he checks back again, I feel very confident he is on an ace high. River is another 3. So 3, 3, deuce 4. And I bet 10K, right? I would even do that with ace king. Now, if I have ace king or ace queen even, I have the best hand, right? I can value bet very thin also with half pot with these hands to get the occasional hero call from ace jack, ace 10. Also, he can have king jack suited, king queen suited. Would be disaster if it goes check, check, right? And we apply pressure on these hands. Maybe he has the occasional ace 7 suited. And also, from his perspective, what are we really having, right? If we have a weaker ace high, we would very likely start bluffing earlier. Now, also it's easy to bluff flop and turn. Usually delayed bets are under bluffed, right? So my line looks exactly like ace king, ace queen. It also looks like the occasional traps, or maybe the occasional ace 2 suited, the occasional ace 3 suited, the occasional ace 4 suited, that pot controlled. So we have a lot of these hands, which he does not. So actually it's a pretty good run out for us, considering the action. So that's why just half pot bet on the river with queen jack suited here. And I think it's a mistake to start betting on the flop and turn, considering how population plays. Just take advantage of them being too passive. Even if you play against a maniac, this is a board where I would slow down a lot, because I don't see them folding. I see them being sticky with ace queens and ace jacks way too much if you play against weaker opponents, because finally they get a good hand. This is where you can lose a lot of money if you don't play it smart. Just think it through. And against good opponents, I think it's a good line. And even against recreationals, I just don't think they're gonna. Against recreations, I would also not bluff the river. They're just gonna snap you over with ace 9 suited. You just want to go thin for value. That's the exploit. Ace king, ace queen. I've seen ridiculous river calls. They're just curious. They want to see, wait, you checked twice. I want to see, right? And then they call ace 8 suited for half pot. And also blasting, betting pot. Yeah, I don't also really see this working out. So these would be the 2 lines I would be choosing against these kind of opponents. And yeah, we chipped up nicely after that hand. So then just a few small pots. Table ended up breaking. We left the table with 90K. My peak was around 110K. Got a new table. Blinds went up to 1K, 2K. Got aces in the small blind. My pants already got wet, of course, especially after the button opens. We 3-bet 4K, 15K, and big blind rips in, I think 30-ish big blinds. We had, or 25 big blinds. We had, yeah, healthy 45 big blinds. Button also tanks for quite a bit. He folds, we snap. He has king queen off. Unfortunately, the board runs out king queen jack 8 deuce. My cam died, so I couldn't really record with my GoPro anymore. So I don't have footage from that, but not so important. Just the, you know, occasional bad beat.
Philippe, say hi.
Hello.
I got a pretty tough table here. Just legends, legends, legends. Only legends.
We're left with like 25, 30 big blinds. Lost one more small pot from the big blind. I was down to 22 big blinds. Then Felipe Ramos from under the gun opens, and yeah, we rejam ace jack suited for 22 big blinds. I think fairly standard. Flat is also an option, but it was not the best table. A lot of good players on this table, and my buddy Julian Thomas as well on the table. And big blind wakes up again, goes all in. Felipe then tanks for quite a bit and ends up calling ace king, which I think is a reasonable tank. But considering that he just showed king queen off as a 4-bet jam, I think ace king, then he just ends up calling.
Alright, so we're all in. 25 bigs. We need a yoke. A queen? No, GG.
Unfortunately, we could not hit our hand and we're out of the tournament. Still fun though. Grinded my way up for 4 or 5 hours just to like get completely destroyed in 1 hour, within less than an hour, less than 30 minutes. So, but this is poker, sometimes nothing you can do.
So I just busted the 3K unfortunately, but I jumped into the deuce to 7 single draw, not triple draw. I think triple draw would be a bit too difficult. I mean, probably still efficient in the single draw, but I think I just sucked someone out really badly. But you know what, no gamble, no future, so gonna try to spin it up, gonna, you know, just try to apply pressure. I think, you know, playing the unpredictable style.
Call. Two. 2. First action. Checks. Checks. Bet.
I'm all in.
All in.
I ran a sig bluff on the river, 3-way. I checked jam with, in my opinion, good blockers. And if there are any mixed game specialists, please let me know in the comments if that was a good bluff or if that was a terrible pun. And you will see if this one worked out or not.
Oh. Fold. Fold.
Can match that.
How the other producers?
Show me a pair.
A pair?
You know how to play this game. Alright, 3, 6, and 9. 3, 6, 9, Annie.
You're on the list.
All right. You were bluffing with a pair. You started it. After chipping up nicely at the beginning, I couldn't hit any hands for 2 hours. I had some good opponents, but also some weaker opponents. And I would even claim I had an edge on this table. And in this hand, yeah, unfortunately, I decided to rejam, which I think in hindsight is still a good decision. My opponent was really loose, meaning he would open hands like 3-card draws from hijack, meaning when we have 5 cards, he would swap out 3 cards on the flop, and I think that's way too loose. And against that range, my hand, which was a 10-9 low hand, made hand, is a pretty good hand to reshove, especially for 15 bigs. So I reshoved. I was hoping he calls, and then he would draw 1 or 2 cards. Unfortunately, he calls and he pets, meaning he is on a made hand. So I have to draw 1 card. Unfortunately, I see he is on a 9-7 draw. So since I had 10-9-8, yeah, I want to swap out the 10. But since I cannot get a better hand than a 9-8, I am already drawing that. And I'm out of the tournament. But it was a lot of fun, not gonna lie. I really enjoy this game. And if I find the time, I will dive deeper to study this game a bit more. But I'm also curious. Let me know what you think about my bluff earlier. Do you guys think it was a good bluff or not? I hope you guys enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments what you would like to see more in the next coming vlogs.